We are on the verge of mandatory mini camp, and it's mandatory that we talk Broncos with you on Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and Mace. We're going to discuss what we're looking forward to the most because this is different from OTAs. We get to see all 3 days.
All 3 days, so anything they do this week, they can't really hide. We also see a little bit of a preview of what's going to come in the first days of training camp. Typically, the 3 days of mini camp you use, and then you kind of go over the script once again when you get to training camp. So we get a chance to see what the points of emphasis are going to be, maybe even see some stuff that we didn't see in the 3 days of OTAs that we got to witness. We'll get to some of that later. But let's start at the top. I think you start with what the quarterback rotation looks like. And is it still a three-way rotation, or has it already narrowed down?
Well, and that's where I was going to start, Mace, because we have seen Zach Wilson with the first team. We have seen Bo Nix with the first team twice. Honestly, what I'm looking forward to, how does Jarrett Stidham look running the first team? Will we see that? Is it down to a two-man race? But for me, I'm focusing on Stidham first, actually.
Yeah, and we didn't see all the days from Bo Nix, of course. We only saw 2 of the 3, and we saw 1 of the 3 days running the first team for for Zach Wilson. Haven't seen anything at all from Jarrett Stidham. We won't have the complete picture, but we'll have a better picture this week. And is that going to be enough to where they narrow it down? Look, we have the limited sample size. Frankly, I saw enough last week from Zach Wilson to where I'm ready to just narrow it down to Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham. But we have an incomplete picture compared to Sean Payton and his coaching staff.
Yeah, and that she said that, I'm thinking incomplete. Well, I want to see what Jarrett Stidham looks like.
Easy.
Because you mentioned we're getting a taste of what training camp will set up as. Is Jarrett Stidham your incumbent into training camp? I think he should be, Mace. And that's why I'm curious to see how are we going to see this play out over the next few days.
Yeah, he's the incumbent going into training camp. And so what does that mean? You've got him taking the first snap this summer?
Yep.
And you're doing it alternate days if it's up to you?
Something like that. He gets the first preseason game, you know, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not even giving Bo Nix the second preseason game. We know it's, you know, now the third one doesn't mean as much, but like for me, I'm not giving that guarantee on the box for Bo Nix. I'm saying Stidham, it's your shot. See if you can handle it.
So are you okay with that? Because you are all roads lead to Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix.
What would you rather see?
I would rather see Jarrett Stidham be steady, and I would rather see Bo Nix just beat him out, like come out in the preseason and slinging it. You know, really make that emphasis, win that job. People aren't going to like the reference, but when Russell Wilson beat Matt Flynn, it was obvious. It was so obvious. It was obvious in camp to the people that were covering it. So it's like, don't waste time. You don't need Jarrett Stidham as the placeholder. If that's the way it ends up, Mace, I'm fine with that. But it's not like we have to go in saying like, well, Stidham has to start the first month.
Yeah. The other thing also with Russell Wilson, it was obvious even when he was running the 2s. And see, that's where I think there's been a little bit of a difference so far in that to this point, even though we have not seen Jarrett Stidham run with the 1s, watching him with the 2s, and then watching Bo Nix one day with the 3s and then a couple of days with the 1s, it hasn't yet been obvious. Now it's early. It's mini camp. It's OTAs. It's rookie mini camp. There are some positive signs, and I think we can say unequivocally that he looks better than other Broncos rookie quarterbacks have at the same point. So that's a positive sign. But he has not gotten separation yet. It hasn't been to a point where we can say, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to be the week 1 starter. That hasn't happened. And again, based on the sample size that we have, it looks more like Jarrett Stidham is going to be the starter in week 1, but there's still plenty of time. The point being, at some point, you have to consolidate it. And that's why you and I were talking last week about, okay, let's see if we can't get this thing down to 2 here.
Right. Right.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure the 3-way does anybody any good. And the longer the 3-way goes, the fewer chances whoever ends up starting is going to have with the ones. Unless you're thinking, oh, all 3 quarterbacks might start this year, which I hope not, but I wouldn't rule out in the realm of possibility because injuries do happen, and you do have a young quarterback who, if he's not starting week 1, is going to start at some point.
Right. And I wrote about it in Mile High Monday. You can check it out at denversports.com, Mace. And, Jeremy Fowler had the report and it got picked up by everyone like, Zach Wilson's in the mix. And I'm like, well, I mean, technically, yeah, but he really shouldn't be. And for people saying, you guys are calling the competition after some OTAs. Yeah, it's been that bad. And for me, it's like if Wilson is playing, and this is my direct quote from the article, Wilson is playing, something went wrong. Sorry. That's just the way it is. I want to see Stidham if you have to. Mainly, I want to see Bo Nix for a dozen games or more.
So the possibility of Zach Wilson having the switch flip, that's not there for you.
Have you seen it?
I didn't say I've seen it. I'm saying the possibility of it happening at some point.
Well, and I'll go Kevin Garnett on you. Like anything is possible, but what's probable?
Yeah.
What's probable is Zach Wilson's is a practice squad quarterback who never makes it in the NFL.
Yes. I mean, I have yet to see a quarterback who does not look skittish under pressure when I watch Zach Wilson.
Right.
That's the thing. And I'd like to see better. I'd like to see a quarterback who looked composed under the pass rush. I would like to be sitting here saying, oh my goodness, Zach Wilson is better than I thought he could be. The Jets got it wrong. The Broncos got it right. Sean Payton got it right. Be fun. The more quality quarterbacking you have, the merrier when you're trying to figure things out. Haven't seen that at all. Have not seen that at all to this point.
You want her to be Anakin Skywalker. It's working. It's working.
Oh gosh. It's not working yet.
It's not working at all. We get to see Courtland Sutton.
Yes.
I want to see how that chemistry looks because Josh Reynolds, as I've mentioned in our wrap-up show for OTAs, like Josh Reynolds is looking better than I expected. No drop passes, solid veteran. Devon Vele looking good. Like all these guys are looking good, and we don't know about Court yet.
Who do you want to see the chemistry with? Jarrett Stidham or Bo Nix, or you don't care?
Well, I mean, it kind of needs to start with Stidham, right? I mean, it did not look good last year.
It's more important with Bo Nix, though, is it not?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, assuming they take Courtland Sutton and he ends up kind of being shuffled around the way that a lot of these receivers are, which is interesting. When I brought that up on the radio last week, that was not something that went over well. The notion that as receivers have been moving up and down the depth chart and they've been shuffling around from day to day and from period to period, that Courtland Sutton could as well. And I said, oh, that means maybe Courtland Sutton's, catching passes with it against twos from time to time. And I think it was Will Peterson who did not react very well to that at all. But that's
wow.
If you're, how is Courtland going to handle that? If everybody's moving around, he's going to handle it fine.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If everybody's moving around at this point, and with him, if he was being shuffled around, just like, I'll give you a good example. Marvin Mims Jr. probably has a prominent role in this offense forthcoming. His biggest play in the 3 practices we've seen came against the twos, with Jarrett Stidham, with and against the twos. So that's part of what you do right now. It's no big deal. If I don't think Courtland Sutton's going to have a problem with that. And it's not going to be punitive if he's out there working against a second-team corner and with the second-team offense, because that's just how they're moving these guys around. They're trying to figure out what they have. You want to figure out where Devon Vele is and where Troy Franklin is and where Brandon Johnson is and where Jalen Virgil is coming off the injury. All these things that you have to answer. So that does mean some shuffling right now with it. And with the quarterbacks moving around anyway, what's the big deal?
Right. So, well, for me, Mace, I'm like, wait till Courtland goes out there and sees these ballers. You know what I mean? The team is better with Courtland Sutton. They are, just point blank. But he's going to go out there and see some ballers and he'd be like, uh-oh, I'm going to bring my A game today. And I like that idea in a mandatory minicamp setting where it's like, put in your best effort before you take this break and show the team. If you're Sutton, show them you are worth a couple million more.
Yeah. Show them that you're just better.
Ooh.
And it's interesting. Josh Reynolds, that's really a fascinating comparison there. Because Josh Reynolds, I mean, you'd basically say he's a third wave free agent that you bring in.
Yeah, basically, right? But a big body, solid veteran, had the Dan Campbell stamp of approval, right?
Yes. A big body with a contract that has $4.245 million of fully guaranteed money and effectively is a 1-year deal. His cap number for this year is $3.5 million. Next year it's 5.5, but the Broncos could save $4.5 million by cutting him. So that's why we say Josh Reynolds' deal is basically a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Court's missed the time, but this is part of the equation. If he goes out there and he's not appreciably better than Josh Reynolds, what are you doing here? Like, how do you, I know it's just practice, but you're talking about allocation of resources here. And you're talking about somebody who you can't call it a holdout, but stayed away because he wanted more on his contract. Now, then the question becomes, how does coming back get returned? Or coming back, how does that get viewed? And how does Courtland Sutton view it as well? Is it something where he's coming back? It's a good faith thing on the way to getting what he wants, or is he chosen to lay down the contract sword and just play ball?
Right.
Play ball literally, not metaphorically.
What do we see from Courtland Sutton? We are fixing to find out. Before we get to the defensive side and certainly to special teams, which we have some interest there. There's not really a chance we'll see Dulcich this week, right?
Well,
I don't know. He ran on the hill last week, right?
He was running on the hill. Delarian Turner-Yell is up there as well, but DTY is more of a ways off, presumably because of the ACL injury that he had in week 17 last season. So, yeah, Sean Payton had said the timeline on Greg Dulcich was that he was going to be back before training camp. So being back before training camp means this week. If he's not back this week, did he have another setback?
Oh my God. And I mean, it has to be. If coach said he'd be back before training camp.
Or he was just optimistic. Or maybe, of course, then again, when George Payton was optimistic about Javonte Williams, Javonte did get back. We, of course, had the discussion over whether he was truly ready to be back or not. If there was just a little bit of, cockeyed optimism there that went into having him back as soon as he was. I think maybe with Greg Dulcich, the thing that's in play is you're saying that to push and prod. Like, okay, you got to be ready by this point. Because it's the rehab from the foot injury specifically that he had in practice. So we're talking about a little under 6 months. Okay? It's a good time to figure out if he's ready or not. Find out. I mean, of course, God forbid he goes out there and pulls his hamstring. Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't.
Could you imagine? Can you imagine that? Like if he went out there after all, after all the stuff with his foot, he gets back and he has another hamstring problem.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
No,
I mean, it puts you in the conversation of finding another body at the position.
Yeah,
going to the UFL to sign a tight end or something like. That's what that does. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully we see him, and a Kroll versus Dulcich kind of battle would be pretty cool.
Kroll's been getting the time.
Oh, he's
That's
the
the thing.
star.
Yeah. Kroll's been getting the time, and Kroll's been making plays.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and
that's
he's been telling you about it too.
Yes. Well, he's been telling you about it, and telling his teammates about it. And
yes. Yep.
He was at the center of something last week. Little dust up there.
Right.
But that's okay. I like the energy. I like the verve that he's got. I like the intensity that he's bringing out there. It's like in Rudy, that one scene where the guy's like, last practice of the season, and this bleep thinks it's the Super Bowl. Well, yeah, that's how Lucas Kroll is practicing right now, and you like to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You like to see the energy that he's brought, the fact that he is looking at this as an opportunity and trying to maximize it. And the reason why you'd bring in another body if Greg Dulcich is hurt, it's not a referendum on Lucas Kroll, because if you weren't comfortable with the idea of Kroll playing a lot as a pass catching tight end, you would have brought somebody in already. You'd bring somebody else in because if Dulcich has a setback, you can't even rely on Dulcich being a part of the rotation. You'd be looking for somebody to back up Kroll.
Right.
At that point, in that specific in-space role at tight end.
It's intensity in 10 cities, and it's not mostly
live at Budokai.
Exactly.
It was. I always thought it was interesting, like how he did he went for the rhyme rather than saying Budokan. Live at Budokai. Yeah.
Right.
When I was fit for not knowing what Budokan was at the time I saw that movie, I had to look. I'm like, what is it? Like, no, it was not live at Budokai. I'm like, why would she get it wrong? But they just wanted the rhyme. That was all.
Yeah, go for the rhyme and go for the reason. The reason's on special teams. Let's just get there, Mace, right? We got some defensive things we're looking forward to, but let's get to special teams. And usually this is your section, but I actually will have, if we get to see some kickoff stuff, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because we haven't had a glimpse of that yet. The standing position for kickoffs. Well, we had a glimpse at rookie minicamp. We haven't had a glimpse at the practices we've seen so far. It's something where Sean Payton has said the work on the kickoffs is literally going to change how training camp practices are structured. More of the practices are going to be devoted to working on this kickoff, not only because you're trying to get everyone on point with it, but you're figuring out what types of players work best with it. And that changes back of the roster construction completely. It's why I'd say doing a roster projection now, some are going to do it. I think it's completely futile and useless, because the most interesting part of any roster projection is the last 15 spots. And right now, you're making those decisions based on something we have not really seen, which is how they're going to handle kickoffs. There are going to be more special teams plays now in a game because of the kickoffs, and because you're aiming for a landing spot, you're going to have legitimate plays. But with the standing start to it, everyone's in a position, and then they take off, and there's a narrow area for the potential collisions to happen at the start of the play. Are you looking for guys that are just motoring downfield as fast as possible, or are you looking for bigger players? And that change, are you going heavier at linebacker, lighter at corner, heavier at running back, tight end, lighter at wide receiver? What's more valuable on kickoffs? Tight end number 4 or wide receiver number 6? These are all questions that are going to have to be answered in the next few months. And it's kind of a brave new world out there on kickoffs. And I first of all, I want to see how it looks. But second of all, I want to see which players are out there as well and which ones they're evaluating, because I think it could make the back of the roster look a little different.
Yeah, Sean Payton talked about roster construction. Here's what Coach had to say.
It all gets back to how can we get him to the game? How do we see him playing in the game? And, you'll see, I think, offensive linemen in that protecting front line, because that's a group that's hard to get, aside from field goal, it's hard to get reps. But I think we're starting with a bigger group, a bigger picture, and then working our way down rather than trying to guess and narrow, who we think those candidates are.
Bigger picture.
Line. Yep.
So more linemen out there. So 10th offensive lineman perhaps on the roster.
Mm-hmm. I
That's
could definitely see that happening. You know what I wouldn't want to be right now, Mace?
What?
I wouldn't want to be a small player. Michael Bandy.
Yeah.
Sorry, you've been making plays out there, but back in the day, you would keep that kind of special teams guy around. And now it's like, ooh, Jalen Virgil has a better shot because he's larger.
Yeah, and also he can be a returner. But if you are a wide receiver and your special teams role is gunner, chasing downfield rather than returning, you better have some size. So this, for example, favors a Lil Jordan Humphrey to continue sticking on the roster because he's a bigger bodied player.
Yep.
At wide receiver. Almost to where you're talking about him being a little a tight end. Those are the types of players that are going to be favored in this rather than the smaller, swift wide receivers. You'd say, David Sills is somebody who's a real good special teams player. Where does he fit in that as well? Now, the other thing that could come into play is this kickoff being more like a punt. It's going to reward players who have better tracking abilities, better change of direction. So it's possible that somebody who flourishes on punt coverage is going to end up having more of a future on kickoff coverage as well. So there's that coming into play too. But yeah, the thing with special teams is last year, I think we saw it to where, okay, maybe the best wide receivers weren't kept because of special teams needs, right? And that's something that may come into play as well, but maybe even more so this year.
We are fixing to find out on the verge of mandatory minicamp. Mason, I'll be out there all 3 days. What am I looking forward to the most, Mace? Hanging out with you, buddy.
Oh, come on. There's something on the field.
Because
the other thing is we don't necessarily watch practice together. Sometimes we're in different parts of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm moving around.
When we were at the Senior Bowl, we were kind of, in the same section, but we weren't sitting next to each other. We were observing, and then we get to
we talk after
our thoughts together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing also is I think if we watch all of practice together, there, you can kind of get into a little bit of a group think. I think it's really interesting when you and I watch practice and we're apart, and then we get together after practice and the same guys jumped out, which is when that happens, it's like, oh, okay. All right. I wasn't the only one who saw that. I wasn't hallucinating. Someone else saw it too. And then that I start getting confident, not only confident, but it's like, okay, I think there's really something here because more people saw it than just myself.
Right. Who's popping? Who's out there making us go like this?
I'll tell you what, I want to see some guys pop on defense. I want to see somebody pop who could play opposite Pat Surtain. We've seen Riley Moss. We've seen Damari Mathis. We've seen Levi Wallace. I like what I've seen from Moss in particular in the 2 days that we saw him work. There was one day he missed because of a tweak to his back, but he came back pretty quickly. But I want to see some separation there. I'd like to get to a point where we see what the secondary is going to look like pretty early in camp so you can start getting the communication down, especially with, can't get into details, but some of the wrinkles that Vance Joseph and Jim Leonard have cooked up there. Communication is going to be key in terms of getting this right. If you have some guys moving around, and also you got something new at the safety core with PJ Locke and likely Brandon Jones working together. That seems to be where that's certainly where it's headed. I want to see JL Skinner pop, but I think the JL Skinner pop isn't going to happen until pads go on. And that's another thing to consider is there's only so much we can see. And that's why
actually pop.
Yeah. That's why I'm looking more at the secondary rather than what we see from the front seven. I think the front seven we're going to learn more about when we get to training camp. But the secondary, I think we can get a better grasp on this week.
Fan flipping tastic. You know what I want to see? About 52% of you that watch these videos aren't subscribed.
Oh boy, here we go.
We need your help on YouTube, Mace. How can they help us?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss a vid. Not that.
That's right.
Not that.
He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.